Hello and welcome to the first installment of my weather Q&A series. My name is Jai Collins and I'm a fellow storm chaser and an aspiring field research meteorologist, which means I want to help understand what we already know about our atmosphere and expand it, so that we can better understand different weather phenomena. More specifically, I want to help the ever-evolving studies about tornadoes. My mission with these Q&A sessions is to get behind the eyes of storm chasers and see from their perspective on what each chase entails and why they do it, whether it be for the raw data to better our warning time or for the thrill seeking. This is Inside the Mind of a Storm Chaser. Today with me, I have
KATV Storm Chaser Cole Outlaw.
Buddy. How have you been?
Man, I've been all right. How have you been?
Just working pretty much. I mean, both of us have been kind of busy. So with this second season starting to kind of roll around, it'll be just, I think, 2 more months before we can really start getting back out there in the field. Yeah, it's been kind of a rocky summer. It's been hot, humid. Heat index 24/7 is like above 110.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
So.
Oh, and funny enough, folks, the individual interviewing me is my co-pilot. So it's kind of ironic, pretty funny, but I'm glad he's doing this. It's going to be good. So what you got for me, Jai?
So, number one, I kind of want the audience to know a little bit more about you. Just kind of get a sense of, what you do now, especially because I heard you got a new job and you got a new position. So kind of go into that and, some other stuff.
Okay, so for starters, work full-time in construction. I'm an assistant superintendent, just wrapped up college for construction management. But on the side, like I mentioned earlier, I do storm chase for KATV, local news station here in Little Rock, Arkansas. That is a large passion of mine, big hobby of mine. I've been in the weather for years now, and I'm hoping to grow even more and see where the journey takes me.
Yeah, me and Cole have been storm chasing for almost half a year now.
Half a year.
So, our buddy, my personal buddy, Dylan Atkinson, which he'll be on here in a future installment, I'm pretty sure, because he's probably going to ask me, and I'll probably say yes. Yeah, he introduced me to Cole, and ever since, we've been kind of the duo. We've bagged our fair share of severe weather chases, and boy, do we have multiple stories for you guys. So, let's get cracking with some questions. So, Cole, what made you make the decision to storm chase? Because I was never really informed on that.
Okay, so this goes way back. I'm a youngster now, but when I was even more of a youngster, the crazy part about it, I used to be horrified of severe weather. I hated it with every bone in my body. It scared me. I mean, there could be like a marginal risk one night, and I'd be like freaking out, thinking something was going to happen. But at the same time, I was always interested in it. There was the fear, and then there was the interest.
Yeah.
The fear slowly transitioned into more interest. So, that and watching the show Storm Chasers, which is very popular in the mid-2000s and the 2010s. Watched that religiously when it came on TV, before streaming was a thing. So, you had to catch it at like 8 o'clock.
Exactly.
And I'd sit and I'd watch it, and I was just so infatuated with it, and it blew my mind. And I remember telling myself, I want to do this one day and see where it takes me. Okay. And here we are now.
Well, yeah, we're here, and you've made quite the name for yourself. Like you said, you chase for KATV, and you met Barry Brandt and
James Bryant.
James Bryant, yeah. So I'm sure any youngster, especially me, I still haven't met them yet personally, but that's part of the adventure that it'll come. So throughout the few chases you've been on, what was the most fun or impactful one?
So most fun to me, we ran out to Oklahoma on April 27th.
Oh boy.
This also ties into another question too. So this is going to be the same answer for both. But the fun part about that was branching out from Arkansas, branching out from local chasing, and leaving the house at 9 in the morning and not getting home till 3:30, 4 in the morning. you can find fun in there.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
but just the part of the adventure aspect, getting out there, seeing new areas, getting new lay of the lands and whatnot, and most importantly, learning new areas and seeing severe weather in different regions of the United States.
Yeah.
So that was a fun time. I really enjoyed it.
Alrighty. But yeah, Oklahoma is one of the more states that do see the top end spectrum of tornadoes,
Yes.
which we were terrified on April 27th. Oh, good God. Let's not speak about that yet. We'll save that for later. But now let's kind of do the same question, but a little bit on the opposite spectrum. What was the most... So you had fun,
Yes.
but which one was more impactful?
Most impactful to me as a whole, for me personally, was the first chase of this spring. Correct me on the date, March 12th?
March, I think
or
it was
14th?
12th or the 14th.
It was over spring break.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, left class, met Zach Hardcastle, met up with him, and the next thing I know, I'm chasing alongside Zachary Hall and Frankie Shepard, big names in the Arkansas community. And for me, personal impact, I got to meet those guys early on and got to see how they do things and get the feel of what they do and try to learn from those guys. That was an impactful day for me, seeing how they did things and how they did their show.
Which, yeah, that's another thing is when you said you had met all these big time chasers, me meeting you for the first time, I was just like, oh, good God, these are people that I look up to. And this guy, he's met them and chased with them. So it's like...
Met Jordan Hall that day too.
Yeah.
in Ola, Arkansas at a gas station.
Ola, it's like you told me today, like I just figured out that Ola
One horse
was,
town.
Yeah, one of the weirdest cities in Arkansas. It's a small town, not even a city, just plains, not even that, like trees
It's
everywhere.
up in the Ozarks.
Yeah. So So now we're gonna kind of go towards a little bit of a spookier side. Throughout your chases, you've gone on how many so far?
Lost count.
Good answer.
Because they all run together, especially the slow days.
Yeah. Which one was the scariest?
Okay, well, there's two.
Okay.
The first one happened to be on the day I had the most fun.
Okay.
April 27th, high-risk day, SIG Tour day, and it did it. It happened, unfortunately. Lives were lost, unfortunately, but that was one of the scariest days I've had. And, the scary factor comes in from, you get worried for other people. You're sitting there ultimately watching a mile-wide wedge tornado cross I-40 at night, and there's people that are unaware of the situation, and you just have that deep gut feeling of, oh man, wow, bad things are happening at this moment. That really has the most part to do with it. And then the other part is, I remember we were sitting at a Love's gas station, and we were watching this thing on radar, looking at the track, and about that day, everything was moving straight north. But long story short, we're sitting at the gas station, and Jai looked at me and goes, hey, this thing's about 10 miles to our south. And it was moving relatively quick, about 45, 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were unaware of the size, the width of the tornado. And knowing that if we wouldn't have left when we did, we could have been caught in a very bad predicament. But thankful enough, the gas station was not touched. It missed it by a couple hundred yards. I mean, there was some minor damage here and there, but and just at the end of the day, it's just one of those deals where you sit and you go, oh man, that could have been bad if we wouldn't have done what we would have done and been on our toes. So that day, and then I'm losing dates here, the Hot Springs tornado this year on the marginal risk that absolutely blew up out of thin air. Ingredients were there in the atmosphere, but not really.
Nothing was really there to
really there, and it really didn't get anyone's attention, and it was just a lone supercell, and it did it. The scary part about that, two things: how it just blew up, wrapped around, and dropped a tornado, and in the matter of I don't know, 10 minutes, and that was a big one. And then the second part to that day was, if you looked at the track, if that tornado would have held together, if you recall, we're sitting in the truck on 530 talking about this, if it would have held together, if it would have been violent, track was right for my house.
Yeah.
I mean, right for my neighborhood, awfully close to you.
Yeah.
But I mean, my home would have gotten a direct hit.
Yeah.
And sitting there going, we want it to hold together, but we don't want it to hold together.
Yeah.
And just sitting there with the anxiety of, is it going to hold together? Because, I mean, it's possible. I mean, tornadoes can go a long way on the ground, given the atmospheric conditions are right. Thankfully, it did not. But that kind of really spooked me. That's probably the scariest events I've had so far. And unfortunately, I'm sure there'll be more down the road. So,
especially with, the second season coming up, we're in a, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in the comments, but we're in a El Nino pattern right now, so conditions are kind of in, we're in a heat dome at the moment, but once that second season rolls around in the winter months, La Nina conditions flip around. I mean, we get much more bigger, deeper digging troughs, and the correct ingredients in the right place. We could go from one day not having anything to having wedges on the ground across the entirety of the continental U.S. So, but yes, Cole, I do agree with your statement about the Hot Springs Village cell getting too close for comfort. It was just on radar. We were looking at it. It had a massive hook. If it would have held together, it would have tracked awfully close to the Academy Sports, and it was almost like, when I say dead center track towards your house,
I mean, crosshairs,
man. Like, it was like, when I say bullseye, and I played archery in high school for a while, and when I say that was a
centered up,
dead center track towards his house, thank the Lord it fizzled out right before. But yeah, like, those days are definitely the scariest because you never know when it's going to happen. But let's segue back to some more easier and much less, sensitive questions. Let's kind of go back towards the fun question, but this time the least fun.
Okay, which one was the least fun? Well, oh man, where do we start? There's one that comes to mind, and it was, once again, I can't remember the date because it was so irrelevant that it doesn't even matter. It was, I believe, an enhanced risk day, and the enhanced risk kind of trickled down into north central Arkansas along 40. Yeah. And we made us a trip to between Morrilton and Russellville with high hopes. We drive up there, and what do you know? The cap did not erode. Nothing happened. Every cell that we had coming into the state of Arkansas completely fizzled into just nothing. Nothing happened. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it because it's always fun to get out and do it. But, I mean, that day, we didn't even see lightning.
No.
We didn't even see rain.
No.
It literally didn't do anything.
Well, we might have seen rain, but when I tell you, Russellville's lights were we saw Russellville's lights through the lightest rain. And you would think you wouldn't be able to see nothing.
Showers.
Pop-up showers. Summer showers.
Nothing held together. The atmosphere was not right in the state. And ultimately, the cap did not erode that day.
No.
And it happens.
Yeah.
That was probably the worst.
Yeah. There are more.
I'm not going to say the B word on this, but it was probably the worst.
Let's just, at this point, I would be very inclined to say the B word. It was a bust. It was just bad. I went home and I was just like, I'm going to hop on Roblox because I have nothing better to do with my life. Alrighty, so now we're getting into the more quirkier questions. Yeah. This one's, have you chased any inland tropical systems?
Beryl.
I heard that one was a doozy.
Hurricane Beryl. Yeah, nothing like I've ever seen before. Beginning of that day, earlier in the evening, we got on probably the most mature supercell we had all day. got tornado warned, had a nasty radar presentation, had little spin ups here and there, and had a nice pancake structure. I mean, just beautiful. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better. I mean, the only thing more you could ask for is a tornado to drop out of it. But we did get I'm going to call it a land spout out of it, or what tried to be a tornado. You know, we had something that was plowed to ground, very, very, very ropey and thin. That was probably about the most normal thing we ran into that night. Everything else was pretty much, you know, everything's embedded. I mean, you physically cannot see a car length in front of you, so you're solely relying on velocity, and you just look down on velocity and go, oh, there's a couplet there. And you look, and one would be moving straight north, one would go straight west, one could be going northwest. I mean, it was just no predicting it. If it just happened, it happened. It was embedded. You couldn't see it, but we chased it anyway. And it was fun, and it flooded, and it was just, to sum it up, different than anything I've ever seen. Tropical stuff is odd. End of story.
End of story.
there you go.
And I heard you were in the Academy sports parking lot, and there was a spin up.
Okay,
that potentially happened.
There was I'm not going to say for factual here, potential spin up that may have happened right on top of my vehicle, because, you know, it's raining so hard. I mean, it rained probably an inch an hour or less. I mean, it was coming down. It's when it's raining that hard, people, you know, you can look and you can generally tell very easily. It's like looking at a flag almost. You can tell which direction the wind's coming out of. But when you're sitting there and the rain curtains start making a broad circle around your vehicle, you go, oh. And then you look at velocity, and then, as I mentioned earlier, there's the random rotation couplet right on top of you. So, I mean, it is what it is. If it would have dropped something, it would have dropped it right on top of me. But tropical systems.
Thank God.
I mean,
it didn't happen.
Tropical systems. End of story.
That's all you got to say. Beryl was a monster. Let's just say that it was quite the troublemaker, and it did end up doing having a tornado outbreak. Like it was classified
earlier in the day in southwest Arkansas. There were
about four
confirmed tornadoes. One of which was a very, very photogenic stovepipe down in South Arkansas, almost on the border of Louisiana and Arkansas. Very nice, but the further it moved in, you know, the weaker things got. But it was fun, and it was different. And it was good for something different. So, enjoyed it.
Good. Now, we're going to get onto your inspirations. Which big name storm chaser do you see as an idol most, and why?
Man, so I'm sure there's so many names out there that you could think of, you know, that people would say, man, all honesty, biggest to me, probably Pacheco's Hank.
Okay.
I've been watching his stuff on YouTube for years and years and years. I will argue and die on the hill that man has the best tornado footage. Not some of the best tornado footage I've ever seen in my life. And just the way he does things, and, you know, he's on his own, and his personality, and his videos are also educational. It's not just a bunch of screaming and yelling and, oh my gosh, there's a tornado. Oh my God. It's calm, cool, collected, how I like to be and how I strive to be. And he's also educational. He'll edit in and cut in a video and explain why this is happening. And he'll have his own little model and graph and explain things. So he really, Pacheco's Hank was the one that really inspired me to take the commitment and put my foot in the door in this community. I mean, he was the one who, you know, I'd watch him and go, you know what, I want to do it.
Okay. All right.
I want to do it.
I heard he, because I watch him as well. He's an incredible chaser, incredible photographer. He dropped a video on the specifics of his storm chasing and everything like that. He went into detail on, so there's a storm to the north, storm to the south.
Oh, yeah. Option A, B, or C.
Yeah.
That's a normal thing. And he did like I said, he did a great job at explaining it. I mean, that's how it is. And you can learn from his videos too on sometimes what not to do.
Yeah.
He's about got himself killed a handful of times. But
Remember those?
so yeah, he's probably the one that really inspired me to get real serious about it.
Okay, alrighty. So this next question is, you gotta think back, potentially.
Okay.
So, do you remember any previous severe weather events from previous years? And if so, which one stood out the most?
Okay. The one that stands out the most to me personally may surprise you and other people that live in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Once again, I was so young. All I can tell you is April of 2008. Mm-hmm. There was a tornado outbreak. Spring of 2008. There was numerous outbreaks that spring. Mm-hmm. And the one that stands out to me the most is I remember it was a middle of the day threat. Mm-hmm. I remember my dad coming getting me and checking me out of school. Mm-hmm. Looping back to the beginning, scared to death by the way. I remember if the sirens could have gone off, it felt like they went off every hour. Mm-hmm. It was just constant go, 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 go. Nowadays, that would have been, dream scenario for someone like me. Yeah. But back then, man, I was scared, shaking in my boots. Mm-hmm. And that night, I remember it was in Salem. And Salem, the way the crow flies from Old House was probably, I don't know, let's just say give or take ballpark, 5 to 7 miles. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a tornado on the ground and it got real still. Mm-hmm. And I remember going out on the front steps, our front door, mm-hmm. and looking out over the trees, and the lightning hit just right and I saw it. Mm-hmm. First tornado I ever saw. Mm-hmm. And it blew my mind as a kid, and it still does till this day. That's a really big one. That whole, let's just say, severe weather season of that year. The other big one, Mayflower, Valonia, 2014. Yeah. Awful situation. Mm-hmm. Timing couldn't have been worse. Track couldn't have been worse. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting where I'm sitting now, actually, and looking at the TV and mm-hmm. watching it live on air. It was Todd Jacobian and Barry Brandt. And I do believe Ned Permy was still Channel 7. Yep. So it was them three. It was the big three. Yeah. And I remember watching that on TV and just being not necessarily in shock, just shock and awe, mm-hmm. if you'll say. That's one that really stood out to me in the past mm-hmm. for the state. Yeah, Mayflower and Valonia, if you guys don't know, was part of a larger scale outbreak that year. It was the first high risk, I think, for Arkansas in about, I say, 4 or 5 years. No, 2 years. Mm-hmm. No, 3 years, because 2011. Yeah. The 2011, about 2 days before the infamous April 27th, 2011 outbreak. Yes. Arkansas was part of a larger scale outbreak, and Valonia was hit by an EF2 2 years prior, so they were still reeling from that damage. And EF4. Yeah. Mayflower, Valonia was wedge, EF4. No one could see it. No. That area, the only place that any decent video or pictures came from were all 40 between Morgan Mall Mill and Mayflower. Yeah. People local call it the bean field straight away. Yeah. It's open. But other than that, man, horrible location for it to happen. Mm-hmm. Horrible track, horrible time of day. It was right in rush hour. Yeah. And it unfortunately took a couple lives. Yeah. But those are the two that I really, really remember the most. So, this is my last question. If you told your younger self that you're now a successful storm chaser, congrats. Thank you. What would you think your younger self's reaction would be? Ecstatic. Lose his mind. Actually, I showed you before the interview, I have a paper from 4th grade where I drew a picture of a tornado and a little dominator, and it was like a little description, introductory thing about myself. Mm-hmm. And in it says, wants to be a storm chaser. Mm-hmm. And here I am doing it now, not just, oh man, tornado warning, get in my car and go see it. I'm doing it, for affiliated with a news station, and I'm doing it with a purpose. Mm-hmm. He'd be ecstatic. I'm gonna be honest with you. it still don't feel real that I'm that involved in it, and I'm gotten where I've got now, and there's no telling where I'll be 5 years from now. But he'd be ecstatic and probably be, what? No way, you know, and it just don't feel real still sometimes. And it's crazy how stuff like that works out, you know. But it's just like I tell everybody, you know, you put your mind to something, you stay committed to something, you can do it regardless of what it is. Or if you want to go chase tornadoes, if you want to go, you know, you want to be a doctor, you want to go do this, you want to go do that. If you can put your mind to something and you commit yourself to it and you take the time to do it, anything's possible. Yeah, he'd be ecstatic. He'd love it. He'd eat it up. So
well,
that answers that.
It's like I always say, Outlaw WX. Outlaw WX. It was meant to happen from the moment he was born. But thank you so much, Cole.
Yep.
It's
Problem,
a
buddy.
beautiful pleasure. I'm sure our chases are going to grow and just become much more than, you know, just us taking pictures, sending it to the National Weather Service and stuff like that. But again, thank you. You've been an incredible buddy, incredible
Yes, sir.
storm chasing partner, and 2 more. And good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. This is the first installment of my weather Q&A. I want to say thank you to Mr. Outlaw, and thank you to my editing person, Mr. Eli Hill. I know you're probably going to have a wonderful time editing this, but thank you so much. And we will be back with another special guest on the next installment. Take care, guys, and stay safe.